Character Explorations, a podcast production of the Wendt Center for Character Education at the University of Dubuque. I'm Annalee Ward, the director of the Wendt Center. Our guest today is Dr. Beth McCaw, Associate Professor of Ministry at the University of Dubuque Theological Seminary. She is the author of the article, The Oxymoron of My Comfort Zone. This article is available online at dbq.edu/Wendt/publications. That's dbq.edu/WENDT/publications. Welcome, Reverend Dr. Beth McCaw. It's good to have you, Beth. So you wrote this article for the journal issue, Character and Discomfort. And this project challenged us to think hard about the role of discomfort in character formation and expression, something most of us would rather not think about. And your article makes us face our own wants and desires in light of how to best love and care for our neighbors. So as we think about character and discomfort, how could you describe how you began the article, or what got you thinking in this direction?
Over the years in different settings, I've worked primarily with churches and church groups for outreach and for mission and for service. I've also done that with university groups, and we talk about service learning and sort of do-gooding activities, right, which make us feel good. And interestingly enough, sometimes we feel like the more muscles we strain, or the more we sweat, the more noble our gesture is. But over the years, as I worked with groups and led groups, I also asked receiving communities, host communities, what their experience was of our presence. So maybe that would be a homeowner of a Habitat house and how they received the volunteers who showed up ready for the photo ops with their hammers, or in a setting in another country, people showed up to help with a water system or run some programming for a week or two. And it was very revealing to hear what the experience was on the other side. And I should know this because I actually lived in another country for several years and received people who came to do service trips and missions, and recognized that sort of the careening around in the pursuit of feeling that we've done something noble, at best is benign, and at worst does damage. And to go home with a sense of nobility when we haven't really grown in ways that allow us to bless others and empower them and build relationships is rather tragic. And so I wasn't content to have us continue doing service trips, mission outreaches for that very superficial rush of we've done something good, and not actually accomplish something good that's good for everyone's souls, for those who receive those doing service, and for those who go and join them. Ironically, when we are willing to get uncomfortable in a lot of different ways with ourselves, and not just sweating, doing hard work, but stretch ourselves, that's when we start to grow in ways that are satisfying in another way.
So comfort is something human. I mean, we like to be comfortable. I think you even mentioned an example of a Disney film that highlighted it. Tell us a little bit about what that film was about.
The film WALL-E, a Pixar film, which describes, it's a dystopian sort of animated feature, which finds the Earth 700 years after we've run our course in seeking comfort. And in the process, we've not just trashed the planet, but we've trashed ourselves, body, mind, and spirit, and end up being so uncomfortable in where we find ourselves, sort of with a mess, with
and numbed with comfort.
Yeah, we get lost.
Why do you think comfort is so attractive? What forces draw us to center it in our lives?
It might be easy to think that it's just a matter of inertia, right? It's either easier to sit down and be still than it is to exert ourselves. If that were all that was going on, then I think it wouldn't be so much of a problem, but there are actually forces that encourage us to seek comfort to the point of being toxic for us as individuals and as communities or as a society. And so there can be good impulses we have. For example, the desire to be in a relationship, which can get twisted to dysfunction, where we bring our neediness to other people and we use them for our own upbuilding, and we're oblivious to how we're being manipulative, for example, in the relationship for our own sake. And ultimately that doesn't work for us, but in the moment it may feel that way. There are forces in society which encourage us toward this. And we could look in American society at sort of the individualism and what does it mean to lift up and serve myself. I'm autonomous. I'm able to orchestrate things in a way that serve my felt needs best. And this is celebrated to the point that we lose sight of our connection to one another. I'll just use a very small example, consumerism. I enjoy that. I like that. That's appealing. And I'm not thinking about how this connects me to others, let alone what consuming whatever's appealing in the moment might even be damaging myself as well as the community I inhabit.
This pursuit of comfort is deeply ingrained in us. I mean, as you say, these forces, the messages we receive all around us, that it's all about us and it's all about what we want. And we generally want the easy path. So can you think about, even when we want to serve others, comfort seems to be a subtext in that. Do you have any examples that you've seen of how that comfort first comes out in somebody seeking to serve others, maybe on a service trip or whatever?
It comes out in the most distressing ways, like your slip is showing, right? Especially when we're showing up trying to do something generous or full of, magnanimous impulses. We might even be, ironically, a little histrionic in our service and sort of seeing ourselves as the center character in a drama in which we're doing something good, which makes us feel good about ourselves. And the problem is it doesn't play out that way. Others end up being a foil for ourselves being self-aggrandizing. We end up being manipulative in ways that we don't even realize. And then sometimes there are moments where we recognize, oh, I'm actually using them as a foil in my photo opportunity to show me being so generous or me sweating so much to help another person. And that really, diminishes everyone.
That photo op is so prevalent today because of our online existence. We all need photo proof that we were there or we did something good or we cared.
One of the things when I've worked with folks in classes, for example, or in preparatory weeks of small group work before doing a mission trip, for example, or a service outreach, is to think on the front end of even what those photo ops are. And the way I like to frame it is when we have the opportunity to join a community for some shared endeavor for the good of the world for all, that we understand it as that. And we have the privilege of then becoming a bridge to bear witness to the good in that community to those who have sent us, those back home, if you will. The temptation can be to come home and to put together the video or the show or the pictures on the website in a way that showcase ourselves and our service. And part of it might be wanting to demonstrate that we've been faithful and worked hard to honor those people who have supported us and provided this opportunity. But what if instead the opportunity is to showcase the community that we've joined, that we have the privilege to bear witness, to say, look at the beauty here, look at what we've learned from this culture and from this community. And our job is to interpret that back to the home community, rather than the focus being on ourselves and how hard we worked, but to say, look, we have the privilege of connecting these communities.
How, as I think about this, how might you talk about self-serving service, as you call it, how can that actually interfere with the growth of compassion in volunteers?
What is the center of gravity? What is the motivation? Those things matter. We think those are sort of hidden. We don't give a lot of attention to them. Service is service, right? Scoop some soup into the bowl. But it actually makes a difference what the disposition of the heart is, because it plays out then in what and how we do things and what the result of them are. So just because something looks like a surface activity doesn't mean it reflects things like compassion or ultimately love. Do-gooding is not necessarily love, especially when it gets all tangled up with those desires to affirm ourselves, build ourselves up.
So you've mentioned that you see a paradox at work in service trips. Talk about that. Paradox is a strong theme in the Christian life for sure.
There is, in the Christian faith, and actually we see reflected in some other faiths, this idea that in order to truly be ourselves, we need to give ourselves away. Another way to put it is that out of death, out of the dying of a seed, life grows and sprouts. And so in order to become who we are created to be, I would say, who we're intended to be, we need to be willing to give ourselves away in a life that is not focused on pursuing our own personal individual comfort. So it's this paradox, it's this irony, as we are willing to get more uncomfortable in making ourselves vulnerable to the needs and even the pain of other people, that we discover a rich and meaningful life, a sense of vocation and calling for ourselves. So we find ourselves as we're willing to risk not being self-centered, but to love.
I think that's such an important reminder, because if I'm going to battle my desires for comfort, it's just that I need that challenge and that reminder that life is death, that I need to be second. And I appreciate that reminder. But it also could have a dangerous side to it if we are so self-giving. What cautions do you have for us when we center neighbor love? Like, where does comfort and discomfort fit into service?
So in this article, I'm not arguing that there's no place for comfort. And I'm not arguing that everything should be uncomfortable.
Okay.
It's allowing them to each to have their place and not to hold the center, so that moment by moment, relationship by relationship, we're able to ask, what serves love? And sometimes that's joyful and fulfilling in the moment, and sometimes that's painful and vulnerable. But that comfort and discomfort play a role that is peripheral. Those are what they are in the midst of committing ourselves to love one another. So this isn't an argument for asceticism, for example, but it is centering love of others instead of the pursuit of oneself or neglecting oneself.
Okay.
It's good to be a whole person. And we are whole also in relationship with others, where we give and receive.
So as you think about that centering of love, shifting that focus to love, what does that look like?
Very practically, it is moment for moment to develop the habit of asking what serves love, or acting on the basis of what serves love, rather than what do I want in this moment, what is easiest in this moment, what serves love. And here's an encouraging thing. As easy as can be to slide down the slope towards self-centeredness, we can also develop habits of the Spirit where we train ourselves to be weighing what represents love in this.
All right. I'm just so taken with the gentle reminder that we are not the center, but that we have a role to play. That is so important. Are there any last things you'd like to leave us with as we wrap this little talk up?
As you just said that, I had a sense of relief when you said reminded that we are not the center. That's really good news. That's exhausting and very small. If my comfort were the end of all meaning in life, right? Okay. But to discover ourselves in relationship with others, love, now that's worthy. That's something of which I want to be a part. That's a vocation that I want to pursue. That's much, much better than just myself.
Beth, thank you so much for the challenge to examine our motivations, even as we seek to help others, and for reminding us that discomfort is not to be feared, but that it might signal that we're shifting priorities, growing in character, and building relationships of loving service. Our guest today has been the Reverend Dr. Beth McCaw, Associate Professor of Ministry, and I'm Annalee Ward for Character Explorations from the Wendt Center for Character Education at the University of Dubuque.